Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
Sound Cartel.
The work-from-home experiment has well and truly been run in 2020. But how can businesses successfully get those employees who were able to work from home and preferred it back into the office? From Sound Cartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. One of the monumental changes brought about by COVID in 2020 was the mass exodus of office workers as they were all ordered to work from home. How was that ever going to work? But what an astonishing outcome. To the surprise of many and the shock of some, this new working from home arrangement has been embraced, and many employees may now argue that they don't want to go back to the office ever again. So the big question now, as COVID hopefully remains at bay, is has working from home become the new normal? And what powers do employers have to insist that their employees return to the office, even if they don't want to? It's now being addressed at union level, as we'll hear shortly from Cheryl-Anne Laird, head of the HR and IR division at Mazars, and what that will mean for employers too. First, Heather Dawson asks Cheryl-Anne, has a year of working from home thrown myths and misconceptions about the need for office-based work out of the window?
I'm not sure that I would say that it's thrown it out the window, as much as saying that it has forced a level of innovation which we would never have anticipated. I think it's a little early to say whether or not we've completely overcome some of those myths and misconceptions, but certainly there are a lot of employers out there who would have said this can't work, who through some innovation and cooperation with their employees have in fact made it work. Might not be perfect, but they have made it work.
Yes, so generally speaking, how has everybody coped? Not just employers, but employees too.
I think that observing what people have been able to achieve away from what you would expect. So normally we all get up, we do what we do at home and we come to work. Employers and employees have cooperated, in my view, in a way that we've never seen before. And as a result of that, where they have been able to work from home, people have coped very well. Having said that, the added stress of having to do that period of homeschooling, which in each state was a little bit different, I think has added a level of complexity for which employers and employees should all pat themselves on the back for getting through it. How well? That remains to be seen, but they've done it.
Well, the big question now, of course, is will working life ever return to pre-COVID days? What do you think?
I think for many people it will. I think that some people were a little slow to return to work, and some states, for example, Victoria, are still not able to return to work in any kind of substantive way. They're bringing people back on a couple of days a week so that everybody gets a go. But for many businesses, I don't think they're going to prefer to move to a wholesale work from home. Some will, but I don't think that that will be the general arrangement. So I think for many people pre-COVID, once we move through it, once we've got that vaccine, we'll start to look an awful lot like 2019 and not so much like 2020.
Well, many employees might argue, however, that productivity actually improved without all the distractions of the work environment and the long commutes and so on. Is there any evidence actually to show that productivity has improved? What do we know?
There is no reliable evidence to say that productivity has improved. There is no doubt in my mind that for some people there will have been an improvement in productivity. But for others, we may have seen a bit of a spike in the beginning while it was still a bit novel. We then added the homeschooling. We then added the isolation of working from home. And so I think that the studies that might determine that are probably months to years away. And I think they are the things that are driving some of the challenges about whether or not people should return to workplaces because, quite frankly, we really don't know.
The question arises, of course, is that some employers might want their employees back, but the employees might not want to actually go back now that they're used to working from home. If an employer would like their workforce to return to the workplace, can they insist on it, even if it's not the preferred option of their employees?
They can. Ultimately, it's up to the employer to determine where work is conducted. That isn't to say that there might not be some circumstances, particularly where there are health-related issues and risks to health arising from the commute or the gatherings in the workplace, which might not mean on a case-by-case basis individual employees ought to be given reasonable adjustment. But from a wholesale approach to it, if your employer says, hey, our work is in the office, you are going to have to return to the office.
Does that leave the employee with many options or any options?
It leaves the employee with the same options they had in 2019, which is many awards, industrial awards, provide for applications for flexible working arrangements, and employees can still access those kinds of arrangements to make application to their employer if they wish to move part of their work to work from home days, and they'll be assessed on their merits. Now, it's a limited number of people who can make those applications. They are in certain circumstances, mainly around where you need it to accommodate either childcare arrangements or caring arrangements, or are related to age or disability. But not a lot. If you've got an employer who's just saying, we work in an office and this is where we want you and this is where we need you, and there aren't special circumstances, there's probably not going to be a lot of options as they currently stand today.
Okay. Well, looking forward, I understand that the ACTU has prepared a charter for working from home. What's that going to mean for employers? Is that something that they will have to apply?
No, it isn't. The ACTU, which is the peak union body, have put together a charter for the purposes of assisting union members, perhaps when they're negotiating enterprise bargaining agreements, to put this forward as what they would like to see, or parts of it that they would like to see the employer adopt in their work from home policies. They are definitely not enforceable unless an employer agrees to adopt them or to incorporate them into an agreement.
But do you think there might be more regulation around working from home arrangements looking forward, apart from what the ACTU has done?
I think that it's inevitable. Certainly the Fair Work Commission is looking at what might be needed to facilitate some of this flexibility in the industrial awards, and I have no doubt that the ACTU, if they don't get any success with their charter, will push for some form of legislative change. But I don't think we're going to see the sort of regulation that applies to work within a workplace subsequently applied to the home. It's just not possible. It's just really hard to regulate how people set up their homes, what their computer systems are like, and they are some of the significant barriers to work from home, which took a very back seat during COVID because of the necessity, which are the sorts of things that if you're going to do it on a long-term basis, you would certainly need to look at much more closely than we did in 2020.
So what do you see, Cheryl-Anne, as the biggest challenges for employers as they try to work out the next steps in bringing employees back to work? And how would you advise them?
Yeah, I think that the big things are making sure that people understand their obligations, making sure that people understand that the working from home was a response to an unprecedented set of circumstances, and that if the employer wants you to return to work, then you have to. Now, the best way to achieve that, the advice I give my clients, is to do it cooperatively, to find out what are the barriers, why do people not want to return, and are there ways that you might be able to accommodate those, plus still allow people to return to the workplace, and make some assessments about whether or not that needs to be full-time. Is there some capacity to have some at home and some in the workplace? But at the end of the day, for me, it's all around communication, because the employer does have the power to direct, but that should be the last resort. The first point of call should be to try to get people to understand. The biggest fear people have, of course, through the COVID months was the risks of going out in public, the risks of public transport, the risks of being in a workplace with other people. So we're really going to have to regain the confidence and the trust of our employees that our workplaces are in fact safe. I would certainly be looking much more fondly on the job of returning people to work in Australia than in any other country in the world at the moment, because we have the evidence that it is safe. I don't think that the same applies elsewhere, and I think that's a testament to employers, employees and the community generally in Australia who've done a great job of bringing us back to an almost pre-COVID normal in the workplace.
That was Cheryl-Anne Laird, head of the HR and IR division at Mazars. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at Sound Cartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
Sound Cartel.
This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.